Good morning, everyone. We will get started in just a few minutes. If you want, please let me know where you are tuning in from today and if it is hot or cold where you are. Tanya from Intuit is freezing in Trenton. I know I'm in Calgary and thankfully it has warmed up. You can use the Q&A and it's a great test to see how Q&A is working for you so that you can use it during the session, as I will be taking questions as well as the good old. Oh, Manitoulin Island, awesome. Snowing and cold, not so awesome, Jill. Our band played Manitoulin a number of years ago, and loved hanging out at the radio station there. Ontario, of course, Vancouver Island is beautiful, Helen. Yes, probably green too. Nova Scotia cold. I heard that Texas, even Texas is getting snow. Makes me feel bad because in Calgary it's plus temperatures today, so it shouldn't be too bad. Hi, Amber from Kelowna. And just use the Q&A section. I know some of you are trying to get through on the chat section. Q&A is what we use. Okay, we'll just get started in a couple of minutes here. Oh, Victoria. I have to make a trip to Victoria sometime this winter. Hi, Lori from Nova Scotia. Vancouver. Hi, Lori from Calgary. Okay, we've got a few Alberta folks here. And Cheryl is freezing in Alberta. So are you in northern Alberta, Cheryl? Okay, we still got a few people joining, so we'll give it a couple more minutes. I was in Toronto a couple of weeks ago and it was -5 and windy. And I compare -5 Toronto weather to -30 Calgary weather. It felt that cold to me. The wind coming off the water, I guess. Frigid in Winnipeg, yes. I'm from Saskatchewan. I remember the frigid days in the winter. Not that Calgary doesn't get them, but a lot fewer frigid days. Okay, we'll get started in just over a minute. Still people joining. At least we're almost through January. Hopefully it'll start warming up soon. Okay, about 1 minute and we'll get started. Anyone heading down south for some warmer temperatures? Hi, Kim from Calgary. Grace going in May. Nice. I bet you can't wait. I mean, yeah, Toronto these days very cold. Hopefully, warmer weather is coming very soon. Okay, I am going to jump on and share my screen, and we will get started. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the T1 newer user, our introduction to ProTax T1. We are almost in tax season again, I would say. It's getting pretty close. Hopefully you are all prepared or getting excited about the upcoming tax season. My name is Jason Hasty. I am a CA, CPA CA. I got my CA way back in 2001. I also have my master's in accounting, and I have taught quite a few of these Intuit ProTax webinars. I was actually in the Intuit office last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, and I saw a bunch of the new developments coming with ProTax. So very, very excited about that. Okay, some information about today's webinar. It will be 75 minutes long, so just over an hour. We're going to have an hour of instruction and then 15 minutes of Q&A. I'm going to try and take you through a little walkthrough as well today of QuickBooks and WorkPapers and ProTax. I am teaching tomorrow's webinar, which is the advanced or the experienced user for ProTax, where we'll answer a lot more things there as well. So feel free to sign up for that one as well and get another CPD credit. Direct versus general questions, please try to limit to today's content. Use the Q&A section, and I will try and answer questions as I go along. We also have Duncan and some Intuit folk, Tanya as well, there to assist you with answering questions. So as a question springs up for you, feel free to use the Q&A area to ask those. Okay, handouts and CPD certifications will be emailed out after today's presentation. Please download them for your records and do your reporting as required. Again, please limit your questions to today's webinar content. And of course, today's webinar is eligible for 1 CPD credit. That will be emailed out to you, as I said, after today's presentation. If you don't see it in your inbox, check your spam. And if you still don't see it, please reach out to Intuit for that. Disclaimer for today's webinar: all information in this webinar is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal or tax advice. The webinar, its contents, and myself are not to be relied upon for tax treatment of items reflected on tax returns. And no, we will not be talking about the capital gains changes today. I actually don't even know what's going on. I don't think our government knows what's going on yet, but hopefully soon. So today's agenda, we are going to be starting with books to tax. So that is Intuit's and QuickBooks full ecosystem of going all the way from your monthly bookkeeping to the tax return. I will give you an introduction to ProTax, things like why do you want to be using ProTax? How do you buy ProTax? Which years ProTax covers, as well as other areas of help within ProTax. So getting help is very important. We'll be talking about how to get help in today's webinar, how to navigate, how to set up ProTax. Very important to have it set up properly before you start, and how to navigate around it. We'll be looking at importing T1 files, and then we'll be looking at a basic T1. And Sophie said, did I receive this Q&A? Yes, Sophie. So if you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A area and ask your questions. Okay, so let's start with books to tax. What is books to tax? So QBO, or QuickBooks Online, has a specific accountant or bookkeeping portal to it called QuickBooks Online Accountant. You can just Google QuickBooks Online Accountant, make sure you are on the correct website, and you can sign up for QBOA, as it's known, for free. It's an absolutely free program that includes all of the QBO client management, as well as your other client management. So your client database is captured in QBOA. Your clients do not have to be on QuickBooks Online to have them in that client database. And we'll be talking about ProTax and creating tax returns with clients that are part of QuickBooks Online, as well as clients that aren't as well. Question in the Q&A, will we be receiving a recording today? You won't be receiving one, I don't believe, but in the QuickBooks and the ProTax YouTube channel, all of these sessions are recorded, and you can find those directly in there. I will show you a little bit later on how to get help and how to access that as well. Okay, so what is books to tax? Books to tax is what helps you stay on top of your clients' month-end tasks. It includes all account analysis and reconciliations. You can find and troubleshoot accounting mistakes, look for oversights, You can create period and checklists for you or your team to follow. It helps you prepare year-end working paper files, monitoring team's progress on all period end tasks, and it helps you start the tax process. So it can do a lot. It's built into QBOA. Sign up, it's absolutely free. To use the books to tax feature, your client has to be on QuickBooks Online for that because it pulls all of the information from QuickBooks Online. But to create a tax return in ProTax, your clients do not need to be on QuickBooks Online. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the 3 tabs that come with Books to Tax. To access it, you have to be in your client's QBO file. So that's really important. In your dashboard for QuickBooks Online Accountant, you go into your client's QBO file, and that's where you access Books to Tax. There are 3 tabs. There's Books Review, Work Papers, and Income Tax. The Books Review tool focuses on common but possibly tricky bookkeeping areas, things that you want to take an extra look at and ensure that they are correct. Things like incomplete transactions, reconciliations, so those really important reconciliations, looking at account balances, and things like that. This lists the key tasks. So any kind of loose ends that you have, you can tie those up, you can prioritize work, you can create and customize own tasks. So it's really good task management system. You can collaborate on transactions with your client directly in QuickBooks. And this is really, really important. I love the feature and the ability to collaborate with clients on transactions directly in QuickBooks. Often we are emailing clients, and if there's any sensitive information, any client information, emailing is a very insecure way of sending information out to clients. But if you are communicating with them directly within the QBOA portal, they will get a notification that you are requesting a document or that you've got something to ask them. And that is a really, really powerful feature of Books Review and QBOA. When you first launch the Books Review, that tab on the left, you can choose 2 different options. You can look at cleanup or the monthly workspace. So both of them include the following tabs. So we have the transaction review, account reconciliation, final review, and wrap up. If you are in the cleanup mode, it also has a setup tab. So you can see that on the left-hand side there as well. Lana asks, can we use it for our own books or for just our clients' books? I believe you can use it for your own books as well. I am 99% sure on that. I should know that answer because our firm's books, we use QBO and we use ProTax for filing those. So I am 99% sure that you can use it for your own books as well. Okay, some other things about the Books Review. When you were in the setup tab, this is where you can quickly adjust opening account balances. As you can see by the bubble number 1, you select the adjustment account. Here we've got retained earnings. Then you enter the opening balance for each account you would like to adjust, as you can see with the list there. And then you just click Add Adjustment to record the adjusting journal entry. So great feature to set up the client's books if they aren't set up properly. Also note that there is this clock icon that indicates the status of all your tasks. So this kind of carries forward to all of the tasks. And I talked about that task management area. So that is the clock, and you can have things marked as to do, done. You could be waiting on your client for information, for example. That's where you can access that throughout the task management system. Okay, so let's go into work papers and get an overview of those. That is the second tab. So in this screenshot, you kind of see the left-hand bar. That's the QBOA, the QuickBooks Online Accountant, and that is a dark bar. Note that we are in the client's file. Again, I talked about that, but I can't stress that enough. At the top, we see in the middle, you see test and example. That's the client name. So we were actually in the client file to be able to access this. Once you were in the client file, you see on the left-hand side the books to tax option with those three areas, the books review, the work papers, and the income tax. Okay, so when we are in the work papers function, that is what you're doing for getting the year end ready for your client and getting it ready for the financial statements or for the tax return. Importantly, we want to make sure we're selecting the correct fiscal year. Watch that because it doesn't always populate the right fiscal year. So we want to make sure we're in the right fiscal year to start with. We can also choose the accounting method, as you can see by bubble number 2. In Canada, we have the cash basis and the accrual basis, but for 99.9% of the businesses, we have to use the accrual basis in Canada. It's only farmers and I believe fishers that can use the cash basis. In the US, it's different. They can use the cash basis. Okay, Grace is saying I'm lost and don't see where the books to review is. So Grace, make sure you are in your client's file. You have to be in the client file to be able to see the books to tax with the 3 tabs, the books review, work papers, and income tax. Okay, so after we've selected the accounting method, if we take a look at bubble number 3, these are the books to tax actions. This is where you can carry forward a previous year's file. You can export Giphy to an external tax program. We'll talk about ProTax automatically importing it, so then you don't have to worry about the exports. But if for some reason, for example, if you were using Profile, which is Intuit's desktop software, then you can export the Giphy file so that you can import it into Profile. Really important, you can also download a zip file. That will archive your year-end work. If you have another accountant that's working on that year-end, that is a great way to have all of the information sent to the accountant on the year-end work. You can also lock the file after you have completed it so that no further changes can be made with that. Okay, so actually, I'm going to talk about one other thing. The income tax tab, we're not going to be talking about it today. The income tax tab is used for mapping of the profit and loss and the balance sheet if there's a corporation. So tomorrow we'll be getting into that for personal tax returns, for small business users, for sole proprietors, anyone who's not incorporated. That's where if we're using any of the QuickBooks Online data, we can automatically start the return in ProTax with the books to tax, the work paper stuff, and the income tax tab where everything is mapped for you. So we will go into a lot more detail on that. That's for T1s, small businesses, and T2 corporate tax returns. Okay, number 4, start a return in ProTax. That allows you to go directly into ProTax and start the client's tax return. Okay, so work papers, just note, there were a lot of changes done a couple of years ago. I think the biggest changes in 35 years, and work papers is compliant with the new Canadian Standard on Related Services, the CSRS 4200. Really important if you need compilation engagements, things like that, it is compliant with that. Okay, so here's the income tax tab. I talked about it briefly, not going to talk about it much more, but basically this is mapping the chart of accounts in QuickBooks Online to the tax return for that automatic import. Okay, so let's jump into an overview. So why would you choose ProTax? What are some of the advantages? You never need to install, update, or manage the apps or the client data. Because it's living in the cloud, all of the updates and all of that are handled in the back end. No more, using USB files or downloading software to update. I used to be the IT guy in the firm that I articled with, and I would have to do that for everybody's computer. That is gone with cloud-based accounting and cloud-based tax preparation. As I mentioned, I was in the Intuit office just recently, and I saw some of the amazing updates that are coming with ProTax. So it is continuing to evolve. All of that happens in the background, so you don't have to worry about any of that. You want to be able to trust the tax preparation software that you're using, and you can absolutely trust ProTax. The engine that is the tax engine that is used in ProTax is the same Intuit tax engine that has been used on millions and millions of tax returns way back to the 90s. It is the same tax engine that Profile, that Intuit's desktop-based tax software uses. So just note that ProTax has that same tax engine, obviously wanting to trust the calculations that are done. Yes, Peter's saying you can electronically file Alberta returns. Yes, I believe you're talking about corporate tax returns. That is correct. You can quickly toggle between your client's files and the tax returns. Again, it's that one environment, that one ecosystem, all the way from books to tax. And really awesome is that it works on both PC and Mac. I have used PCs for years and years and years. I just recently bought a Mac, and I will be setting it up for this year's tax season. So it's nice to know that ProTax can be used with Macs as well. Okay, so what modules does ProTax have? There are 4 modules. There is the T1, the personal tax module, which also includes sole proprietors and the small business T2125 forms. T2 for corporate returns, T3 for trusts, and then it also has the FX module as well for things like T4s, T5s. You can now bundle the programs and has the suites for additional tax savings. So that is something that is fairly new. We will also be talking about another function of ProTax today, which is Intuit Sign, which is a huge addition to ProTax as well. Okay, so to access ProTax, when you are in the QBOA Accountant, on the left-hand side, you will see ProTax. And then from there, you can select which module you're using. You can always flip between them once you are in ProTax as well. This gives a screenshot of the initial screen that you will get when you are in ProTax. And we're going to talk about the what's new area. I will actually show you what happens when you click on that a little bit later in today's webinar. But really important to visit and revisit that every once in a while, as ProTax is constantly evolving and coming up with new functionality. You want to look at that what's new. When you click on that, it takes you to a website tab that talks about all the ProTax release notes. And I think they go back all the way to when ProTax had first started. Purchasing ProTax. So how does ProTax work when you're purchasing it? It's very simple. It's a subscription, as most cloud-based programs are. Once you sign up for a module or a bundle of modules, you are subscribed for a year. So you or anyone designated in your firm that has access can file unlimited tax returns using ProTax with that module or that suite of modules that you have purchased. So it works on a subscription basis and on an annual basis. Also note, there is now a one-pay option. So if you are just trying it out, or for example, if you're only doing one T3, only one trust return, you can purchase just the one-pay option. So you don't have to have that full subscription for the unlimited returns. Okay, what years does ProTax cover? Today, we're talking about the T1 module. It covers from 2018 to 2023. Says 2024 coming soon. I believe that I should have checked that this morning, as I haven't used it yet myself. I assume that it is out now or would be out very, very quickly. One big caveat to note is the capital gains tax. As the government has not finalized that for the 2024 year, what I've read is that it looks like the CRA is going to assume that that legislation is going to pass with the increased capital gains rates that the Liberal government has proposed. So I think the CRA is going to implement it with those, which means that the tax programs are likely going to have that increased amount. If that does not pass, I assume that the CRA will be issuing refunds. I can't, talk on that for sure, but who knows? It's a very weird year for us in tax filing. Okay, so anyways, that's the ProTax T1. ProTax T2 covers all the way back to 2015 and then currently 2025. So we're already in the 2025 fiscal year. You could have corporations with fiscal year ends in 2025 that need T2s done. T2 goes all the way back to 2015. I think for e-file that it only goes back to 2018, which is what the CRA allows. It might be 2017. If anybody knows for sure, please feel free to answer in the Q&A section. Okay, I got to talk a little faster. I'm running out of time already. Okay, getting help. Really important to find help easily in ProTax. And there are many ways that you can access that help. Kathy's asking if I purchase now, does it last for 1 year from date of purchase? That is correct, Kathy. Okay, so when you are in the QBOA, the QuickBooks Online Accountant area, there is always the help at the top of the screen. That is generally for QuickBooks help. If you want to access specific ProTax help, and especially tax help on a client tax return, when you are in ProTax, as you can see here, this is what ProTax looks like when you are in tax return. There will be a little blue bubble at the bottom right that says ProTax help. When you click that, that allows you to chat with a support agent. You can also view the online hub for help there. You can also call ProTax for help. So they built in a lot of ways to access support and help in ProTax. Here's a list of some videos that are also part of the ProTax. I think these are all on the YouTube site. Here is a QR code, so if you want to take your smartphone and take a look at that, this will give you access to that site. A lot of really helpful and resourceful videos. Most of them are under 5 minutes. The longest one here is 11 minutes and 59 seconds. So a lot of different areas that you can access videos, the all important videos for ProTax help. Somebody asked at the start of this webinar if this one is being recorded. Most likely it's being recorded and will be available as well. Lana's asking, are we going to have access to previous year's returns once we stop using ProTax? Yes, you still have access to those previous year's returns. Duncan is answering, so I'm not sure if that access goes away after 7 years or so. I don't think so, but I don't 100% know on that. But you do have. It's just you can't create new tax returns if you aren't subscribed. You can't file an e-file. Okay, introduction to ProTax. Okay, so setting things up. When you open up ProTax, you want to access the tax settings area and take a look through that to set up your ProTax. So once you are in ProTax, at the top right, we talked about that what's new area that you can click. Next to it is the tax settings tab. When you click on that, you will have these various different options as shown on the top of the tax settings screens here. We're going to go through those today. E-file, prepare info, T3, so that's a trust or FX transmission, print, letters, options we will go through, and then the ProTax labs. So this is where all of your ProTax settings live. The very important e-file tab, very, very important to become an e-filer and to be e-filing those tax returns. Saves you and your firm a ton of money, a ton of time, money, I guess, as well, because it doesn't cost anything to e-file, whereas if you are mailing tax returns, there is a cost there. And I don't even know if the CRA accepts many printed returns anymore that can be electronically filed. So I'll talk about the e-filer, getting to be an e-filer as well. Register for an e-filer number early. It can take at least 60 days now to meet suitability screening credentials. It's very easy to register to become an e-filer. If you just Google e-file CRA, make sure you're on the canada.ca website when that Google link brings that up, and then you can register to be an e-filer there. That will allow you the ability to electronically file tax returns. And that functionality is built directly into ProTax. Okay, so this is just a screenshot. Every year for the T1 season, the CRA shuts down the e-filing ability. This year, they are shutting it down 10 days from now. So January 31st, it will be shut down until February 24th. I grabbed the screenshot. So the services are going to reopen 8:30 a.m. on Monday, February 24th, Eastern Time. Why the CRA does that is they shut it down for to get ready for the new filing year. So that will be the 2024 T1 personal tax filing year. That will reopen February 24th. So if you have any tax returns to file that are 2023 or before, you'll want to get those filed before January 31st. Otherwise, you have to wait to file those until February 24th. Just want to mention as well, with the e-filer, you have to do a yearly renewal. I always say, like, do it towards the end of October, November. If you haven't done it for this current year, definitely do it. It can take, again, 30 to 60 days to get that new access again. In the e-file portal, it's actually pretty cool. You can go into it and you can, once you log in, that's where you can renew your account. That's where you can also do things like view any of your e-file service transmission history. Same thing with refiles, same thing with T3s. So if you want to look to see the T1s that you have e-filed, that gives you the service transmission history as well, which is pretty cool. One thing that I want to note, and we're going to be talking about this tomorrow in more depth, is the represent a client and getting a rep ID. That differs from e-file. E-file allows you to electronically file tax returns. Rep ID with represent a client allows you to access all of your client's data that the CRA has, the tax data, online. Really, really handy. We tell at my company Tends to Go, we tell all of our clients to sign up for a CRA My account and a CRA My Business account if they have that. The CRA has just recently changed the login for that. So it's really nice. It's kind of like a one login now. Before, you used to have to go into My account, which is different than My Business account and different than Represent a Client. Now they're all in one in that login. So tomorrow we will be talking about auto-filling your tax return and pulling all of the information that the CRA has regarding your client's taxes for a certain year instantly into ProTax. In order to be able to do that, you need to have a rep ID and have represent a client with your client. The second tab that's in the tax settings area of ProTax is the Preparer Info tab. This is where, if you have that rep ID, that representative ID, that's where you will put it in there, put in your preparer name, all of the different credentials. If you were in Alberta and filing the third-party service provider, so that's filing any Alberta tax returns, you have to enter your information here to be able to file those AT1s, to be able to file the corporate Alberta tax returns as well. So that lives in that same prepare information tab. Also, there's the T3 or the FX transmission tab. Then we have the print tab. So these are all the different print sets that you can create for your clients or for whatever reason you need to. This is the forms that you can select, the different print sets. You can print to PDF. Something really important to note in ProTax is that when you create printed documents, if you're printing to PDF, you can have those password protected, which is really, really important to have password protection if you are sending anything via email. Again, even better to send it to your clients through the QBO portal. If not, sending via email with a password protected PDF is really important. Tara has a question. Sorry, I'm joining late. Will this be available to view after? Is it being recorded? Tara, yes, this will be available afterward, along with any of the other ProTax webinars that have happened. That is on the YouTube channel for Intuit. And I think you can actually access that through the ProAdvisor portal. So when you're on QBOA, on the left-hand side, you'll see ProAdvisor. That should have a bunch of the recorded webinars there as well. If you haven't used that ProAdvisor portal, another really, really great thing and a free feature to use that's included in QBOA. Abdul said, I'm a little confused on eFile and RepID. I have applied for RepID, but not yet for eFile. I thought it's the same. No, it is not the same, Abdul. So you need to apply for an eFile number. I would apply now. Possibly you could receive it before February 20th. It can take 30 to 60 days, if not longer. So I would apply today, Abdul. And just Google eFile CRA. Make sure you're on the Canada.ca website. Another really important, handy, and productive feature of ProTax is the letters. So before you start a tax return for your client, you want to get an engagement letter, really important, so that you and your client know exactly what is going to happen. What are you doing for your client? You know, there's a lot of out of scope things that, scope creep, we call it, at TenjaGo. So you want to outline those tasks and what you will be doing, those expectations in an engagement letter. There are a lot of letter templates that are built into ProTax. The engagement letter is only one of them. Really handy, useful resource. You can create your own letters. And it is very easy. It's in kind of like a word processor format when you go to create a letter. The only addition there is you will see the different tabs and the different colors of the tabs. And those are the input tabs. So for example, if you've got your client's name, you can bring that in through the tabs, and that will automatically update for your clients for those letters. As you can see on the right-hand side here, there are the general tabs, we have the books tabs, we have the tax tabs as well. And then the other stuff that you're going to write to your client, that's just in the black. So that works just like a word processor. You can type and format those letters however you want to as well. Okay, so the options tab currently has two different options in there. These options used to live at the top of each tax return, but now they are featured in the options tabs. That is the live auditor mode and the quick mode. Live auditor, I'll be talking about both of those, I think, a little bit later today. I sometimes get confused with the new user and the advanced. If not, I will be talking about those tomorrow in the webinar I'm teaching tomorrow. Okay, I'm just looking through some of the questions. Somebody's asked, can I prepare taxes for non-clients if I purchase the unlimited package? I assume that you're saying not clients that aren't on QBO. If that's what you're asking, then yes, absolutely. You can create tax returns from clients that are part of QBO that use QuickBooks Online and also from clients that aren't using QuickBooks Online. So yeah, looks like that was your question. So yeah, absolutely. Your client does not have to be on QuickBooks Online to be using, creating and filing tax returns for them. And a great example is you might have a client that doesn't have a business, so they would not have QuickBooks Online as they're just a personal client. Absolutely, you can create a tax return for them and file it for them. Okay, a really exciting part of ProTax is the labs. So these are features that you can turn on and off. They aren't in final release yet. So it's kind of like testing, you're an early adopter, testing of some of these new features to ProTax. We will be talking about Intuit Sign. You can see that as the first option there. Really, really awesome part of ProTax that it's included at no cost, that allows your clients to electronically sign documents, which the CRA now accepts. This, in some instances, I'd say in most instances, has been moved out of the ProTax labs because it's a full feature in ProTax now. But if for some reason you don't see it in the regular ProTax, you can go into the settings and turn it on there. Things like form colors, debugging, descriptive audit titles, and also is this feedback loop. So if you have anything that you want to communicate with the developers, feel free to use the feedback area to communicate that. Things you like, things that you don't like, things that you want to see. Really, really handy. And you are listened to. There is a lot of development going into ProTax, and they are looking at all of the questions and feedback. Okay, so let's get to importing T1 files. As I mentioned, your clients do not have to be QBO users. You can create new tax files without them being QBO users. You can also import T1 files. So importing from another tax application is easy. To do that, you will click on the import returns, and then you will choose the tax app that you're importing from. This example that I'm going to show you now shows how to import tax files from Profile. So Profile is Intuit's desktop software, as I mentioned, their tax software. If you've used Profile in the past and you want to move to cloud-based tax preparation, this is where you'd use it to import your Profile tax returns. So after you click the import returns from Profile, you browse or select the files that you're going to import. You can also drag and drop here, and note that you can do up to 7 returns at once to import. MM is asking, how do I register for tomorrow's session? I will show you this a little bit later, but I'll tell you about it now. In QuickBooks Online Accountant, if you go to Pro Advisor and Training, it will be listed there, and you can register directly from there. So when you're near QBOA, go to Pro Advisor and then Training, and you can sign up for tomorrow's webinar there. Kim's asking about importing TurboTax files. So there is the ability to import TurboTax in other programs. I will show you that screen today. It's not just a one-click, but you can absolutely still import them as well. Okay, so when you are creating a new tax return or importing returns, you will want to match them to a client in your QBOA database. That's really handy because you have your whole client database and then you match the returns to that client so that it makes it a little bit easier to find those returns and to do a bunch of different things that link that to the database. Also note that each spouse in a linked return is listed separately in your QBOA client list. We will be talking more about spousal returns tomorrow. So once you have dragged or selected those returns and clicked import, it will give you this lovely screen that says your returns are ready to go. Note that when you are importing returns from Profile, there is a difference between importing and carrying forward. So in Profile, the Intuit's desktop tax software, you import those returns, That gives you the ability to view those returns for that tax year that you've imported, and then you can carry them forward to the current tax year. So if, for example, if you're importing 2023 tax returns, that will bring those into ProTax, and then you would carry them forward to 2024. Depending on the software that you're using, some of them you can only carry forward, so you can't view the current year or the previous years of them. Okay, so this is the tax return list. This is the dashboard that you will see whether you're in T1, T2, T3. Also note there, that's where that e-signature appears. So that's the Intuit sign that I'll be talking about in a few minutes. Okay, so you choose the tax module. That's number one. Here we're in T1, so we're in personal tax module. You can search by client name. So if you've got hundreds of returns, much easier to filter and search. You can look at the years that you want to search by and the status. So, if you filed a bunch of returns and some of them haven't been accepted, you can click on that not accepted to see where those returns sit there. Number 6, add. If you click on add, that's to authorize a representative. That's that rep ID that we will be talking about more tomorrow. Getting authorization as a rep ID with the represent a client, that allows you to automatically bring in information from the CRA for your client. Really importantly, number 5, this is where you create a new return. And you have 2 options in the T1 module, the T1 personal and the T1 self-employed. So that self-employed is a sole proprietor that I talked about before. If your clients are using QBO and they have profit and loss statements, those can be imported directly into ProTax using this T1 self-employed option. We will be talking about that more tomorrow as well. Number 7, the last one, the drop-down area in that action column. You can either click the view return to view the current return or click the drop-down. That's what allows you to carry forward tax returns. If you've got different scenarios that you want to look at and you want to duplicate a return for some reason, you can do that here. This is where you can rename a return. So when you are creating or importing returns, you can name them whatever you want to, and your firm may have certain naming conventions, but ProTax allows you to name it whatever you want to. And then you can also start a T3 return from the T1s. Okay, so carrying forward, you can carry forward multiple returns. So it's kind of like that import. You can import multiple returns. You can also carry forward. So if you have all your 2023 T1s that you've done and you want to now carry those forward to 2024, you can do that with just one step instead of having to do each one separately. So that's your bulk actions. Again, if your files were imported from Profile, so if you imported them from Profile, those are prior year files, and you will have to carry those forward to the current year. The benefit of that is that you have the prior year information and that file, that return in ProTax as well. So just note that importing is not the same as carrying forward. Okay, so getting started with a tax return. Like I mentioned, you can click on the create a new return and select T1 personal or T1 self-employed. You are going to choose the tax year that you are doing for that return as well. Here we're clicking on T1 personal, and I will try and go through a really quick example of that at the end. ProTax opens a T1 worksheet where you can start entering your data. Now, really handy is this quick search bar. We'll go into that a little bit more tomorrow, but it allows you to search any forms, any lines, any questions in that one bar. Really, really handy feature. We'll be talking tomorrow. I know it sounds like I'm talking about everything tomorrow, but I'm going into more depth on everything tomorrow because today is just a basic introduction of all the different areas for newer users of ProTax. Number 2, documents. Attaching documents to ProTax. I love, love, love this feature. I attached like the signed T183 forms. If we got a self-employed clients, I attach the P&Ls. I attach any documents that I've used in creating the tax return. And note those documents aren't sent to the CRA. So that's your database of documents that you can attach there as well. And then number 3, that's where you can add specific forms to that tax return. You can add the slips, you can add letters. We talked about the letter editor. So just quickly using the quick bar, when you open a new T1, you'll see it up there on the list. You will also have some forms that are automatically included. If you don't see one of those forms, you can click on the quick bar to add it, or click on the bottom area that I talked about to add a form as well. You can also do things like print and share using that quick bar. Okay, getting authorized. Yeah, I went through this. Just want to say here that note that the CRA has made changes to the Represent a Client program. Make sure to look at the CRA's website. Still relatively easy to get authorized for personal tax clients for T1s, but not as easy now for T2 or corporate tax clients. Somebody's asking what's the difference between Intuit Profile and Intuit ProTax. Yes, Profile is the desktop software. So that's where you install it on your computer or your server. ProTax you can use from anywhere in the world as long as you have access to a browser. So it's accessible anywhere. Okay, so let's also look at a basic T1. Okay, so here is what it looks like. We've kind of seen this screen a little bit before. What we have on here is we've created a new tax return, and we are at the T1 Express form. So I'm just going to talk about bubble number 1 again. That's the quick bar. Again, use it a lot. It is so great. At the top, we will also see the taxable income for that tax return for that client, and as well any balance owing for that client or a refund due for that client. The status there where it says not eligible, that is for e-file status. So until you clear all of the e-file questions or queries, then it will say not eligible. Once all the e-file queries are cleared, then that return will be eligible to be e-filed. And I'll talk about the auditor in a second. And then of course we have the documents. So I can't say enough about how much I like the documents. That bubble number 3 and 4, the live auditor in quick mode, that's what I talked to is now moved to the tax settings area. So that is when you are in the ProTax dashboard. So you're not in a specific tax return, you're in the dashboard. You will see both those options, the live auditor and the quick mode. Okay, T1 Express. This is a really handy feature that comes exclusively with ProTax. With T1 Express, you can enter the data for your client's tax return on a single worksheet, and this includes the most popular T1 forms and schedules. So things like obviously the client's information, their name, their social insurance number, address, residency, Canadian resident, as you can see here, T4s, T5s, T3s, donations, medical expenses. So the most common things that are part of most T1s appear on this T1 Express. So really handy area to enter your client's stuff really quickly. And if you have those basic T1 files, you can zoom through them and get through those really, really quickly on one form without having to click back. Amy's asking about autofill. We will be talking about that tomorrow. That is part of the Rep ID, Represent a Client. Very easy to autofill. It's just a couple of clicks. So we will be going through that in tomorrow's webinar. Okay, so the auditor and the live auditor. As I talked about at the start, the Intuit ProTax engine has powered millions of returns. It is what also included in it is also the auditor as well as the live auditor. What the auditor does is it goes through and looks for things that could be missing, incomplete, incorrect in the tax return, and it flags those. So that brings those to your attention. The live auditor takes it a step further, and as you are entering information into fields, the live auditor automatically will flag that field if it sees that something is incorrect. So, for example, the social insurance number. In Canada, Service Canada has an algorithm of creating and allocating social insurance numbers. ProTax looks at that algorithm and says, does this social insurance number look correct? If it doesn't, and you have the live auditor enabled, that is a toggle on or off, then it will automatically flag that field with an orange border saying something's looking incorrect here. So that's just an example, but that's how the live auditor works. So it works in conjunction with the auditor to give you instant or near instant feedback on any field that looks incorrect. Sophie's asking about what are the main advantages for using Intuit ProTax versus Profile. I talked about that at the start of this webinar, but one of the biggest things is that it's cloud-based. You can create access returns from anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection and a web browser. That is one of the biggest features of using ProTax. In addition to that, the ability to, or you never have to worry about installing, updating, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so in those options field that I talked about with the tax settings, we have that live auditor. That's where we can toggle it on or off. The other thing that we can do is quick mode. So if you're having bandwidth or Wi-Fi issues, if you've got really, really slow Wi-Fi, you can enable quick mode, and that will speed up how it loads the screens. Quick mode doesn't update each field immediately like it does in the regular mode. So just note that. But if you have really spotty bandwidth or Wi-Fi, you can enable quick mode, and then it'll speed up the loading of the screens because it doesn't process instantly. We talked a little bit about adding a form. You can do that from the quick bar with the arrow here. Again, if you are looking at a T5, if you're just searching for things and you can't remember where they are as well, that's where the quick bar is really, really handy as well. Okay, so this screen gives you an idea of the auditor. This is the auditor that looks for things in your client's tax return that you're preparing that may be issues, warnings, things that have been signed off. So if there was a warning and you clicked on that little check mark, that'll mark it green and put it into the sign off. Or any overrides, so any fields that you have overridden. If you've overridden fields and you want to delete those overrides, you can also go to the auditor to delete those. You can also go into the field itself, highlight all the information, hit delete to clear the contents of that cell, and then tab or click out, and that'll remove the override as well. The auditor is super powerful and super important to use when you are creating clients' tax returns. Ideally, you want to have every auditor thing that's flagged cleared. So as we can see here with bubble number 1, forms is the area that where we are preparing the tax returns and the tax return and the forms that we are accessing. If you click on auditor, that brings you through all of the different things the auditor has flagged. Note here that there are 11 issues that the auditor has flagged. For example, it's saying on this T4 for box 18, it looks like the EI premiums that have been entered are incorrect. So this is what the CRA's formula suggests. Please check this. So if you know that they are correct, then you can click on that little check mark. It'll throw it over into the sign-offs and take it out of the warnings area. Same thing with the issues. So the issues are the most dire. Warnings are the second most dire. Okay, so On the top, we have the forms and the auditor. Here, the auditor is flagged 14 issues to clear, just so that you note that the bubble indicates the number of issues that have been flagged. Underneath that are two tabs as well. The left tab is what we've been looking at so far, and that's where we input the data. The right tab is how we preview the tax return. So that's the PDF form. That'll show an exact preview of what the tax return is going to look like. So it's really important to have that. That's how it'll look. That's how it'll print. So a great option to just toggle between those two. If we want to print a form or a letter for a client, that's under the returns actions area. And we'll talk more about returns actions in tomorrow's webinar. Intuit Sign for ProTax. So this is a super exciting addition to ProTax. It allows your client's tax forms to be electronically signed. The CRA allows this. So it works directly within ProTax. Very easy to access. You just click on the request signature. Let me go back. We saw that. See at the top right there, request signature. So if you are either in a form like a T183, or if you are going to send multiple forms that have requests, you can click on the request e-signature there. And that's part of the Intuit Sign. Really, really important to note. If you're using things like DocuSign or other signing programs to have your clients electronically sign, just ensure that that signing process is CRA compliant. As part of ProTax, Intuit Sign is CRA compliant. So really important to note that, that any of the forms that are included within Intuit Sign are CRA compliant. And best is that it's included at no additional cost. So really, really handy feature. I go through a few of the, I'll try and do a little demo on it today if I have time. I know it's already 12:02. You've been asking questions as we've gone along, so that has been awesome. Keep asking the questions. I will keep answering as we go along as well. So as part of Intuit Sign, if you're requesting a signature, you will get this pop-up book that says pop-up box that says e-signature forms. This is where you can select up to 5 documents per request. So here we've asked for the T183 for the authorized representative. We'll be talking about authorized representative tomorrow again. Then you click next. You will then get dialog box like that appears on the right with the blue request a signature. As you can see, the workflow is at the top. First is the documents that we are going to be requesting. So that was that e-signature forms in that dialog box on the left here. Those are the forms that we are wanting to be signed electronically by the client. Second is the recipient information, as you can see here. So here we've got Chris Wells. In most cases, this will pull directly from ProTax and through your QBOA database. If it doesn't, you can feel free to enter the information into these tabs as well. One thing to note, because Intuit Sign has to verify you are who you say you are, it looks at your cell phone record of who is the name on your cell phone. So for example, this mobile number here, 999-555-1212, that is how it verifies. So once you send the request, it will look to see, does your name appear, and can we actually have that person sign? So that's really important to know. If you are using like a company cell phone, your name might not be on the cell phone bill, and this may not be able to go through to authorize you or to verify you are who you are. Okay, so after the recipients, then we have reminders. Did I skip one? Oh, no, it's on the right-hand side. I've got these flipped over, sorry. So if you look at the request e-signature on the right-hand side with the reminders, This is another awesome feature of Intuit Sign. You can have reminders automatically sent. You can tell Intuit Sign how often you want these reminders sent, if they expire, and then to give a warning before expiration to the signer. So kind of push them to light a fire under their butt to make sure that they sign these forms. And then on the left-hand side, this is where you see the full workflow. So this is your review and send. I think, did I miss where you can, yes, I missed here. You can craft the email message. So that dialog box on the right there, that's where you can have the subject line that goes to the client and then the email message to the client as well. So then on the review and send, we've got our summary on the left with the documents, the recipients who we're sending it to, how often the reminders are going to be go out, and then that little area that says preview e-signature email, that allows you to preview what your email will look like to the client. Tara's saying, I've had some issues with Freedom Mobile customers, even when the phone account is in their name. Kudos. Well, those should be part of it. I know that SaskTel has had some issues because I think SaskTel doesn't release information. Yeah, that's a good thing. I would let the Intuit developers know that. But I think like TELUS and the subsidiaries, Bell and the subsidiaries, should generally be able to have that authorization happen. Humphrey's asking, if I already have authorize a rep with my client set up with the CRA, do I still need to do it under ProTax? No, you don't need. You don't need to send that authorization. If you've already been authorized with the CRA, you'll have your rep ID and you will just enter that into that area in the tax settings that I talked about. And then when you go to pull the information for the client using the autofill my return, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, then that will automatically happen. Kathy, do the reminders go away once the system receives the document? Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it'll look to see once the document has been received. And in the e-signature area, it's really cool because it tells you the status that it's at. It gives a dashboard as well. It tells you, oh, has it been sent out? Has it been received? And if it's been received, there's a little download button that you can download a copy. What I do with that, I download a copy of the signed document and the confirmation, the e-signature thing that tells about the electronically signing. And I use that documents feature in ProTax to attach it to the tax return. Great feature. And then you know that you've got an authorization. Anytime you go into that tax return, you can pull it up through the documents feature. Okay. What else? Oh, okay. So exactly what I was talking about now. This is back in the e-signature dashboard. So this is where we see the T1, T2, T3, FX, and e-signature. So we're not in a client's tax return here. We're just in the dashboard. That request that we sent out to Chris Wells, you can see that that's here. The documents that are going to be attached are the T183 and one other. Shows the activity. There's the timestamps and date stamps. Shows the status. And this is where you can send additional reminders. Once they have signed, you will see a download button under that action, and that's where you download the signed forms. Okay, so e-filing, just a quick thing to show you where to e-file. That's in the returns actions in your client's tax return, and you're going to be filing the T1 general. That is where you initiate the e-file. It will give you a dialog box like you'd see, file return. You're about to submit a T1 to the CRA, accept and file the return. And then once it's been filed, you will see that T1 return successfully filed dialog box. And that's where I recommend printing that. You can print it to PDF as well. You can also attach that to your tax return, your client's tax return. So using that documents function there, you can attach this as well. Again, attaching as much information then it's available anywhere in the world if you ever need to access it. Again, the benefits of cloud-based accounting and tax filing. Something that I like to leave with as well, colors and indicators in ProTax. There are 3 different colors that appear on the text boxes or the input fields. If it is a purple bar to the right, that means that that's an amount that's been carried forward. So if you carried this tax return forward from a previous year, you will see purple there. If it's a field that's been overridden, that will be highlighted in red. And as I say, as a reminder here, to delete an overridden cell, clear the contents of the cell, then tab out or click out. You can also go to the auditor and take a look at the overridden cells there. Blue means that it has been calculated by the ProTax engine. So that's a calculated cell. And then really, really handy is this go to source. So if you see one of those blue calculated cells and you see an arrow pointing up next to it, you can click on that arrow and that'll take you to the area and show you where ProTax calculated the that cell from, where it got that calculation and that number from. Then once you are in that area, you can also jump back and toggle back to that cell that you came from as well. So really handy there. Okay, some ProTax resources. First, I'll talk about tomorrow what we're going to be talking about. So I mentioned we're going to be talking about T1 autofill my return. We'll go talk about coupled returns, so spousal returns, looking at filing dependents returns within ProTax, pension splitting and optimizing tax through the tool within ProTax that does it instantly for you. We'll talk about some ProTax productivity tools, go further into that. And then we are going to be talking about the T2125 from QuickBooks Online Accountant. So that's at books to tax for those self-employed individuals, those sole proprietors. ProTax FAQs, when you can access these as well for support. There's also community support that you can access within ProTax as well. And then the events and webinars. I am going to very quickly jump to ProTax itself and our test file. So here this is our firm called Lovely Canucks Accounting. As I talked about, there is that gray bar at the side when you're in QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountant. This is where you can access the Pro Advisor. Look for the benefits. There's a lot of stuff in there. I won't go through them today, but a lot of benefits that are free. Here's today's webinar. Tomorrow's webinar is here. So if you want to register for that, you can do that here. I say, strongly advise go through the full training portal there. When you are in a client's tax return, that is where you access the books to tax. So that is where you can access the work papers and you can push everything forward to ProTax. More relevant for self-employed clients and for corporate tax returns as well. But that's where you'll see the books to tax in here. That's what we talked about today. Jump back to QB Accountant. That gets us back into the accountant portal, gets us out of the client's tax return. And then that's where we access ProTax from. So once we're in the QB Accountant, that's where we see ProTax here. You can select any module from here, or you can select whatever here and then go into the different modules once you are in ProTax as well. So that's your T1, T2, T3, FX, and the e-signature. And again, talked a little bit about the e-signatures. Here's sending reminders, viewing ones that have already been done. You can see the history. If you click view all, that shows you what has been sent and what's been completed. Some more action dialog boxes up here. When we click what's new, that's the one that takes us to the ProTax release notes. If we want to create, tax settings, That's what I talked about with the tax settings here with the e-file. The preparer info, this is where you enter your rep ID as well as any Alberta stuff. ProTax Labs we talked about. The feedback. Here's Intuit Sign, turning it on or off. Those two options, the live auditor and the quick mode. If we want to exit, we can save or we can exit here. What else? Let's go in and I will just very briefly show you. If we want to create a new tax return, this is where you do the two here, personal or self-employed. Importing returns, import returns from profile. You can carry forward returns from tax cycle. If you're doing it from other software such as TurboTax, that question was asked, that is where you click on here and it gives you the instructions of how to do that. If we are in a return and we're viewing it, Siroy is asking what's FX. That's your forms reporter, your forms expert, the T4s, T5s, etc. Christine, thank you. Yes, leave now and get on to the rest of the replay. Yep, the replay is great. Documents, we'll be talking about that more tomorrow. Here we are in the client's tax return. We talked about the T1 Express, which is the one form to fill out all of the main areas. Here's RSPs, I didn't talk about that. The medical, I talked about donations, T3, T4, T5 slips. Using this quick bar, very handy to look anything up. Documents, attaching any documents. Here we see the documents in ProTax, in QBO, so any documents relating to that client, because remember, you're linked to that client again, and any work papers. All right, well, hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Thank you so much for attending today. For those of you that are registered tomorrow, I will see you tomorrow, and have a good rest of your day. Stay warm, everyone. Thank you so much.